Hello and welcome. Today I am going to say something on the application of ordered logit model through the COVID-19 pandemic cases. That means the title is like this: Is COVID-19 pandemic the results of openness? As far as introduction is concerned, only one thing that stops the rat race of human civilization globally is the coronavirus disease, COVID-19. This is a super infectious disease caused by a newly discovered coronavirus starting from Wuhan province of China in last December and reaches almost all the areas of the world. Many people believe it is an intentionally created a new version of Cold War through the spread of this virus by one of the rich nations in the world just to establish its supremacy all over the universe. But it is a belief without having any solid proof so far. The COVID-19 virus spreads primarily through droplets or saliva or discharge from the nose when an infected person coughs or sneezes, experience mild to moderate respiratory illness, and it affects all people irrespective of income, color, and power. Older people are those with underlying some common medical problems, age-related problems, are most likely to attack. Initially, it was observed that the most affected nations are developed nations with respect to number of cumulative infections, cumulative deaths, etc. Therefore, it was expected that does it affect only the highly developed nations compared to nations with low or medium development? But as time passes on, it is seen that except USA, other developed nations to some extent have controlled the number of new cases and new deaths, or at least likely to reduce this upward trend. But the developing nations like India, Brazil, etc. are accelerating the pace of tempo in terms of new cases and new death. Therefore, from an economic point of view, it is pertinent to inquire the association of this pandemic with respect to level of development, degree of openness, government expenditure on health, education level of the nations, etc. The hypothesis of this study is COVID-19 infections and the level of development are related. COVID-19 infections and the degree of openness are related. COVID-19 infections and consciousness reflected by at least some amount of secondary education of the people are related. The data sources and variables of the study. Data related to level of development are taken from World Development Report published by UNDP. On the basis of HDI value, countries are classified as low, medium, high, and very high level of development. Similarly, consciousness of the people is measured through percentage of people with some secondary education. Up to 25% is taken as very low, 25 to 50% is taken as low, 25 to 75% is taken as medium, and more than 75% is taken as high. Openness is measured through merchandise trade as percentage of GDP, the data taken from World Development Indicators. The classifications are done in the same way as education. And COVID-19 infections data are taken from WHO's website. All the variables are classified in terms of ordinal variable scale, though some of the classifications are done heuristically, that is without following any literature review or scientific manner, just by introspection of the range or variability of the data after converting in terms of percentage. The methodology of the study. In this study, ordered logistic regression model has been applied, since all the variables and especially the dependent variable is converted into ordinal ordered nominal scale. Hence, we can apply this technique, that is ordinal logistic regression. COVID infections versus level of development, education, degree of openness, etc. COVID infections are converted in terms of percentage of total for each nations given in the data set of WHO. Now, on the basis of the percentage, it is classified into three parts: low level, medium, and high level of infections. From 0 to 1% of total is taken as low level. From more than 1 to 3% is taken as medium level, and more than 3% is taken as high level. Empirical findings. This is shown in the table below. The variable that is in the level of the number of infections The value count percentage low, that is 0 to 1% of total, medium more than 1 to 3% of total, high more than 3% of total. The value is taken as 1, 2 and 3, and 86.93% are low level of infection. 7.84 nations have medium level of infection, and 5.23 levels of nations have high level of infections. The logistic regression table shows the predictor, constant 1, constant 2, HDI, education and openness, the coefficient, standard error of the estimate, Z statistic, p value, odds ratio and the 95% confidence interval level. So from this table, it is the explanation is given in this way. The findings: the estimated coefficient when the predictor is human development reflected by human development index is negative, that is minus 0.411664. This implies the estimated change in the logit of the cumulative probability of infections, both low and medium, decreases by 0.4117 with respect to reference category, that is high level of development, when the level of development increases, keeping other predictors fixed. Since the odds ratio is 0.66, it implies as a nation moves towards development through an increase of HDI value, its level of COVID-19 infections declines by 0.66 times in comparison to high infections nations. Though there is no sufficient evidence for statistical significance of this relation, since p value is greater than 0.5. HDI value minus 0.4111, this is not statistically significant. Similar explanation is applicable for the education variable also. Education percentage of population with at least some secondary education. Variable is taken just to act as proxy of the consciousness of the people. It is expected that as people becomes educated, they should have minimum responsibility to take care for himself or herself or their families or communities regarding some precautionary measures, say use of masks, wash hands through sanitizer, maintaining social distancing, etc. The estimated coefficient of education is negative. It shows that the estimated change in the logit of the cumulative probability of infections, both low and medium, declines by 0.166 as people's consciousness increases, keeping other predictor fixed in comparison to nations with high level of infections. The odds ratio is 0.85, reflects that the level of infections declines by 0.85 times for the nations with low and medium level of COVID-19 infections compared to the reference category, with the increases of education or consciousness of the people. Here again, p-value is not statistically significant. This is education coefficient minus 0.166, standard error, and this is p-value. P-value is not significant and odds ratio is 0.85. Finally, the openness variable. Here the estimated coefficient is positive and the value is 0.613998. This implies that estimated change in the logit of the cumulative probability of infections, both low and medium, increases by 0.613998 times with the increases of degree of openness compared to reference category, keeping other predictors fixed. The odds ratio is 1.85. This means as the degree of openness increases, the level of infections increases by 1.85 times for the nations with low and medium levels of infections in comparison to reference category. Since the p-value for the estimated coefficient of openness is significant, hence this relation is statistically significant. This is openness, this is coefficient, this is significant. See, this is less than 0.05. Now tests of all slopes equal to 0. The results of the above table shows the log likelihood from the maximum likelihood iterations along with the statistic G. This statistic tests the null hypothesis that all the coefficients associated with the predictors equal to 0 or not. In our case, G equals to 7.6 with p-value is significant, indicating that there is a sufficient evidence to conclude that at least one of the estimated coefficient is different from 0. Now coming to goodness of fit tests. The method, chi-square, degree of freedom, p-value. The Pearson, the deviance. The results of goodness of fit tests through deviance measure of chi-square statistic is 65.0418 with p-value 0.613, which reflects that there is insufficient evidence to claim that the model does not fit the data adequately. However, the Pearson measure reflects that there is insufficient evidence to claim that the model fits the data adequately. Hence, the result regarding goodness of fit is mixed. Measures of association between the response variable and predicted probabilities. The measures of association between the response variable and predicted probabilities shows that 65.3% are concordant pairs and 30.3% are discordant pairs, and ties are 4.4%. Similarly, Somers D is 0.35. The Goodman-Kruskal gamma measure are 0.37. These results reflect the predictive ability of the model is satisfactory, but Kendall's tau measure does not reflect a better predictive ability of the model. So these are the references who Data Bank, World Development Bank, World Development Report, Gujrati's, Damodar Gujrati's book, and the YouTube of my own channel for getting the concept of logistic ordered logistic regression. So with this I am concluding for today. Thank you.